out 2.6. That way, 4. last match was a Sarah and Troy kid too. like mine. He shot like I do. Know where you are, Chad. Don't they out of bounds? one here. Brown. 6 more hours. Joe, now I'm watching them roll the mats up.
Proceeds benefit older Pennsylvanians. Tonight's drawing official is Melvin Littles, and our witness is Phyllis Richards. First, the daily number. Draw the first digit, please. 5, the second digit. 7, and the third digit. 2. Lottery drawings are audited by Boyer and Ritter, certified public accountants. And now, Big 4. Draw the first digit, please. 1, the second digit. 5, the third digit. 1, and the fourth digit. 2. And now, the first of 10 finalists for this Saturday's $1 Million Spin, Esther Disler of Morrisville. We'll announce a new finalist each day this week during our show, and the remaining 5 finalists before the spin on Saturday at 7 p.m. The winner will win up to $1 million. Finalists were selected from claimed free tickets received at lottery headquarters as of Friday, March 27, 1992. Watch for your name. Again, the daily number is 572, and the Big 4 number is 1512. Tomorrow's Wild Card Lotto jackpot is at least $7.5 million, and Wednesday's Super 7 jackpot is at least $2.2 million.
Vote Orlowski, Democrat for Attorney General, and take back the streets.
Paid for by Rick Orlowski, Democrat for Attorney General.
From Hollywood Pictures, they told her she'd be rich. They told her she'd be famous.
They love you.
If she'd just do one thing.
What?
Be someone else.
Dr. Shirley! But I'm not a doctor.
Captain Kangaroo wasn't really a captain. He wasn't even a kangaroo.
Now, the doctor is in until the word gets out.
What kind of doctor are you?
Uh-oh.
Well, where did you receive your training?
Uh-oh. What's the difference? She's a natural.
Dolly Parton, Straight Talk, rated PG.
Starts Friday at a theater near you.
Tonight's Democratic senatorial debate is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters.
Good evening. I'm David Kranz. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters, we welcome you to the Pennsylvania Democratic Senatorial Debate. The Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters is proud to be hosting this important exchange of ideas and perspectives. And now your moderator for this evening from WJET Radio and Television in Erie, Don Schreiber.
There are 5 candidates seeking the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate seat now held by Republican Arlen Specter. They're seated at the table in an order that was determined by a drawing of lots. In alphabetical order, the candidates are Robert Coville. He has been the district attorney of Allegheny County for 16 years. Freddie Mann Friedman is a family therapist who holds degrees from Harvard, George Washington, and Heed University. Mark Single is Pennsylvania's lieutenant governor. He was first elected to that position in 1987. Philip Valenti is a sales representative for publications on politics, science, and culture. Lynn Yackel is the co-founder and president of Women's Way, which raises money for agencies that provide services to women. Now, the journalists who will be asking the questions this evening come from Pittsburgh's television stations. They are Stacy Smith of KDKA-TV, Don Cannon of WTAE-TV, and Peggy Finnegan of WPXI-TV. Now, each of the candidates will be given 20 seconds to give an opening statement. The order in which they make their statements was determined by a drawing of lots. Then our panelists will each ask a question of the candidates. The order in which they answer the questions was also determined by a drawing of lots. The candidates will have 45 seconds each to respond to each question. Following the question and answer session, the candidate will have 30 seconds to make a closing statement. We'll begin the opening statements with Freddie Mann Friedman.
Hi, I'm Freddie Mann Friedman, and as your next senator from Pennsylvania, I will get the Congress to cut its salaries and perks and put the money into health care for the American family tailored to your individual needs, and get the CEOs to take those million-dollar bonuses out of their pockets and reinvest in the American worker. That's not a hard choice. That's the only choice.
Thank you, Mrs. Friedman. Mr. Single, you're next.
People are hurting in Pennsylvania. George Bush and Arlen Specter and the Washington insiders just don't seem to get it. We seem to have billions of dollars for Turkey and for Pakistan, but we don't have enough money to retrain our workers in Altoona and Aliquippa and Allentown. I'll fight for working men and women in this state. That's Pennsylvania's agenda. That's Mark Single's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Single. Mr. Valenti is next.
Yes, our nation is in a worsening economic depression. We need Lyndon LaRouche's economic program to nationalize the Federal Reserve and to create at least 6 million productive jobs in 1993. I stand with Lyndon LaRouche because he's the only opponent George Bush feared enough to put in prison. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti. Ms. Yackel is next.
For the past 12 years, I have worked for Pennsylvania families. My skill as a business executive and manager of scarce resources is exactly what's needed in Washington now. I offer performance, not perks and promises. Leadership, not politics as usual. I am the candidate of change, and I can beat Arlen Specter.
Thank you, Ms. Yackel. And we conclude our opening remarks with Mr. Colville.
This election is about trickle-down economics that has been foisted on us by the Republican Party and has been the devastating problems that have occurred for the middle class. This is an opportunity to change the direction America is going in by educating, by doing things for people in health care, and by doing things for individuals in the working class.
Thank you, Mr. Colville. We'll begin our questioning this evening with Stacy Smith of KDKA-TV. Stacy?
All right. Thank you, Don. Mr. Colville, I'll have the first question for you, and that is that with every election year, there is talk of tax reform. This year, obviously, is no different. I know you don't have a lot of time to respond, but do you favor some sort of tax reform on a national basis? And if so, would this reform include a tax increase for any economic group at all?
Yes, I think I would. First of all, I don't think that we're going to be able to reform in such a way that we're going to be able to do it across the boards as it should be. I think we're going to need some time to do that. But I think there's some immediate things you can do. One is I don't think you can promise the middle class, although they've borne up under a substantial 12-year period of having carried probably all of those increases and all those funds that were created for the upper class, and have also borne the responsibility for paying for those things that we've given back in entitlements to people who were in need. I don't think we're going to be able to give them money back. That $400 is going to have to be invested in education. It's going to have to be invested in the infrastructure and those kinds of things. But I do think we should begin to consider a surtax for the upper 1%. We've got to be taxed equitably, and that's the first start.
Thank you, Mr. Colville. Ms. Yackel, same question. Do you favor some sort of reform? If so, does it include some sort of tax increase?
I do. The tax policies of the Reagan-Bush-Specter era have been entirely unfair to the middle class and the working class. I would reform the tax structure by taxing the wealthiest Americans, the wealthiest 1%, and also by providing an $800 refundable tax credit for each child. I would not have an exemption, but rather a tax credit, which would benefit single family-headed households and also the working poor.
Single?
I agree. I think that working class families have borne the brunt of the tax policies of the last 10 years. It's time for them to get a break. I think the Bush-Specter Republican insider mentality that vetoed the recent tax reform showed their insensitivity to the needs of the working middle class. the middle income earners a break in this country.
Mr. Valenti, tax reform, do you
Yes,
favor an increase on anybody?
The problem we have is that the total deficits of states and the federal government's approaching $750 billion. So there's no way that tax increases or budget cuts are going to deal with that problem. What we have to do is increase the tax revenue base without raising tax rates. We need at least 6 million more people working productively in the United States. We have over 9 million people unemployed. We have over 6 million people who are working part-time, who want a full-time job. We have another 6 million people who've given up looking for work. Over 20 million people. We get those people working productively, building up infrastructure, building the magnetically levitated train. They're going to pay taxes. And the businesses that profit by that work will pay taxes, and we increase the tax revenue base. That's the way we tackle our deficit problem.
Ms. Friedman, tax reform, do you favor it? And if so, any increase on any particular income group?
President Bush and the Congress must stop using the taxpayer dollars as if it's their personal income, their own special interests, their special projects, increases in their salary, perks, I don't care if it's haircuts or state dinners. When the American people are out of work, it is up to the American government to represent their needs and give them back what they need. Yes, I think we must have tax reform, and I think the first place we start is with plugging up the tax loopholes that make it profitable for businesses to take their businesses out of America, build in other countries, hire foreign workers. I think we make it much more profitable for them through tax incentives to build in America and hire American workers.
The next question will come from Don Cannon of WTAE-TV.
Ms. Yackel, someone once recently described the abortion issue as the great white shark of American politics, always lurking beneath the surface and surfacing every 4 years. It will this year, no doubt. With that in mind, and given the fact that Pennsylvania's law will be argued before the Supreme Court next month, Congress this summer will take up what they call the Freedom of Choice Act, which would codify into federal law the basic precepts of Roe versus Wade. If you were a United States Senator, would you vote for the Freedom of Choice Act?
I would not only vote for the Freedom of Choice Act, I would co-sponsor it, unlike Arlen Specter. I believe that the government must not interfere in personal private decisions, and I therefore support Roe versus Wade and am strongly disappointed that it's likely to be overturned. I think that I have been consistently pro-choice throughout my career, unlike some of my opponents who have dramatically changed their position on this issue. But I do believe this is a fundamental right, and I would support the Freedom of Choice Act.
Mr. Singal, should Roe versus Wade be codified into federal law under the Freedom of Choice Act?
I support a woman's rights in this matter, and I believe that the government, as much as possible, should allow women to make those decisions. But I also think that there are practical restrictions that should apply. I would oppose abortion in the last 3 months of pregnancy, for example. I would oppose abortion for sex selection, and I would support parental consent. But with those appropriate restrictions, yes, I would support some codification.
Mr. Valenti, the question to you, would you codify the provisions of Roe v. Wade in federal law?
I would oppose that. I think we have no choice, but to recognize that human life begins at conception, and that the same restrictions, both moral and legal restrictions we place on taking a human life after birth must also apply before birth. I think we need to be very strict on this because, for example, at the Nuremberg trials of the Nazi war criminals, it was determined that the Holocaust, the genocide, had small beginnings when doctors decided that some lives were not worthy to be lived. And I think that the abortion policy of 28 million abortions since 1973 has cheapened the human life and opened the doors for euthanasia, for infanticide, and for genocide today. So I would oppose it very strongly.
Ms. Friedman, should we codify reproductive rights in federal law?
Absolutely not. I would support Roe versus Wade. To paraphrase Ellen Goodman, a syndicated columnist, I think the government should keep out of the bedroom and out of the examining room. This is definitely an issue of privacy for the American family, and once the government decides to legislate emotional and family issues, there's no place for it to stop. The privacy of the American family and the ability of each individual to make choices for itself, herself, himself, is a constitutional right and must be protected.
Mr. Colville, should we codify in federal law reproductive rights?
I was a homicide detective in the city of Pittsburgh at one time, and it was illegal at the time to get abortion. And I had the occasion to investigate the loss of life of women, traumatized women. I don't think women will get abortions whether or not they're legal or illegal. And those people who will pay the highest price, women who are the least able to afford, those who are the poorest, will be the subject of the slaughters that went on in those kinds of butcheries. There's no way that I feel that we can go back or that we should go back. I, however, don't think that it's inappropriate to have some reasonable conditions, some of which after the second trimester that you prohibit it without certain exceptions, and also parental consent seems to me to be reasonable. There are certain reasonable conditions that I would allow.
The next question comes from Peggy Finnegan of WPXI-TV. The first candidate to respond, Mark Singles. Peggy?
Lieutenant Governor, the news organization I work for, Channel 11 News, recently held a town meeting on the crack cocaine problem. As you know, drugs are a very serious problem, tearing families apart, communities apart, causing an escalation in crime, and not only in big cities like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, but in small towns. How would you assess the Bush administration's war on drugs thus far, and what changes or improvements, if any, would you make?
There is no war on drugs. I think that the approach that the Bush administration and the Bush-Specter Republican policies have taken over the last 10 years typifies their neglect of the domestic agenda. There are few things that are as dangerous and as cancerous to our society than the use of drugs and the spread of drugs. And yet we have a disjointed series of policies coming from the federal level that really don't attack the problem at its source. In Pennsylvania, we've invested about $110 million a year to fight drugs. We've got to increase the amount of money at the federal level to fight this war on drugs, and we've got to put that into education, enforcement, and training and rehabilitation as well. There just simply isn't the desire or the commitment at the federal level. I think that I would fight for that kind of focus at the federal level.
Okay. Mr. Valenti, your response, the war on drugs?
No question that George Bush is a hypocrite. The pilots and others involved in the Iran-Contra affair testified that they flew weapons to Central America under the direction of Oliver North, who reported to George Bush, and they flew plane loads of drugs back into the United States to pay for those covert activities. The way we're going to stop drugs is we're going to jail bankers who launder drug money. There's at least $300 to $400 billion a year in illegal money for purchase of drugs, which is laundered through banks, the people above suspicion. And Lyndon LaRouche named those people in 1978, and I submit to you that's one of the motives for the attack on Lyndon LaRouche and the attempts to silence him on the part of George Bush and his group. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Friedman, your assessment of the war on drugs and suggestions for improvement?
One of the reasons I decided to run for the United States Senate is the despair in the American family that cannot be solved in a therapist's office. It must be solved at the top by our leaders. A recent study just showed that 2/3 of American high school students think that America will be worse off in 10 years than it is today. If American families and American kids do not have hope for the future, it drives them to look for a quick, easy fix now. Why not have fun? Why not try to get into drugs? Why not rip somebody off? We do not have responsible leadership in our Congress and in the presidency of the United States and in our cabinet members that set standards for behavior. The greed and the corruption, which is allowing our Congress members and our president to misuse taxpayer dollars, is encouraging kids and families and people in our cities to take for themselves. Yes, we need more education in drugs. We need more money in prevention programs, but these prevention programs must target the individual needs of children and adults on drugs. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just got so into the subject.
Mrs. Friedman, your time is up. Thank you for your answer. And now to Mr. Colville, same question.
To try to capsulize what we can do or we shouldn't do with drugs in 45 seconds is an impossible task. I wouldn't even know where to begin. I've spent 20 years of my life involved in fighting drugs and fighting the consequences of drugs in our society. I think the one thing that comes through in every instance where I've been involved is this. One, law enforcement unto itself will not win. The kinds of mentality of drug sweep and arrest without doing things for treatment, without doing things for prevention, are a total failure. They've been a total failure. To try to control outside countries without controlling our own by using monies to try to stop interdiction, not playing it into the domestic field, is a failure and will continue to fail. You've got to create first jobs, opportunity, and create hope for people. That's where it really begins. begins with youngsters coming to school ready to learn, who've been inoculated and fed properly and given an opportunity to learn. You've got to give people hope that they can compete in a worldwide economy. That's where you begin to stop drug and drug abuse.
All right, thank you, Mr. Colville. And Lynn Yackel, any changes you would make as a U.S. Senator?
I think that the problem with drugs in the United States is another example of the misplaced priorities of our leadership over the past 12 years. It seems to me that the drug epidemic is a war that should be fought internally in this country. We have been focused on external adversaries for the past 12 years and have not really invested in our people. I believe our national priorities must be changed, that we must invest in the people of this country and work to prevent problems such as drug addiction by, for one thing, trying to prevent high school dropouts. The 1/3 of high school students who drop out in this country every year are costing this nation $240 billion in lost wages and tax revenues. And I really think that if we focus on prevention, on positive investment, education and job training, that we will win the war on drugs.
Well, we'll have time for a fourth question. Mr. Valenti, a group of 7 senators led by Helms and Dole is delaying the funding for the National Endowment for the Arts and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The question is, how much control do you think Congress should have over PBS and local public station programming?
Well, I think that probably the greatest source of corruption in our society is the corruption of the mass entertainment media and the news media. And what I would appreciate, I don't think it's proper to fund obscene or pornographic art. And I would appreciate equal time for great culture and for also the views of minority views, such as that of Lyndon LaRouche. And I would elaborate that. Let me just elaborate one point I'd like to make, is that what we need is a chance for people to form families, to restore moral standards. Therefore, it's not enough just simply to demand morality. We have to have a policy where we can create, as I said initially, at least 6 million productive jobs for our citizens in 1993, to raise the income levels, to give people productive work so they can raise families and so we can defend the right to life after birth as well as before. Thank you.
Ms. Friedman, how much control do you think Congress should have over public broadcasting stations and the public broadcasting system?
Well, I'm a big fan of PBS and watch it a lot. I'm a very big fan also of lack of censorship in our news media and our news programs and our cultural programs. We do have standards and boards such as the National Endowment for the Arts. And these are people who are appointed, and I think we have to have confidence in their decisions. If we start making censorship rules and laws that meet the needs or the interests of one group of people, it's very similar to the abortion rule and the need for privacy. Where does the government stop in interfering? It's very dangerous to have censorship in any area. I see a lot of things I don't like, and there are things I don't let my child listen to or read. I shouldn't say that. I do let them listen to it, I do let them read it, and then we talk about it, and I tell them what's wrong with it. It's my job as a parent to educate my child into values and not have censorship imposed by the government. That's my role as a responsible parent, and I think that's the role of every responsible parent, and not the role of government.
Mr. Colville, same question.
Oh, art is always in the eye of the beholder. And so to a large extent, I believe if you're going to, and I think we are, we're obligated as a nation, extraordinarily wealthy nation, to fund our art, fund our public broadcasting. And I think once we've made that commitment, it's ours to then keep our hands off of it. The judgments, we hope, will be made wisely. If they're not made wisely, they'll fall because of the lack of merit. It's our job to prevent those who are young of age, tender of age, those of us who are parents, to ensure that we do restrict whatever it is that they watch or we don't care for them to see. So I think for the large part, the answer is simply you fund it and then you rely on the good taste and the good sense of those who you've placed in office to try to conduct it in a way which is meaningful to the arts and to broadcasting itself.
Ms. Yackel, how much control do you think Congress should have over PBS and local public stations?
Well, I believe that the Constitution protects freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and that it's, by definition, public radio is, and public broadcasting is that. It's public broadcasting. I do not believe that the people in Congress should be determining what is and is not art and should be making judgments as to what we see. I think that that is a responsibility of those of us in our own households.
Mr. Stingle?
We need not fear I would propose something very specific. I would suggest to you that this country, as great as it is, should emphasize higher education and secondary education. The way to get beyond prejudice and censorship and fear of the unknown is to educate our students. My proposal is that we make college education a right and not a privilege. And we take some of that $13 billion that we're spending overseas, take a fraction of it, and make college education available for every qualified student in America. I think that's how you get beyond prejudice and small-mindedness.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Single. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 30 seconds to make a closing statement. The order of the candidates was determined by drawing of lots. We begin with Philip Valenti.
We need federal government action to create at least 6 million productive jobs in 1993. This means, one, nationalize the Federal Reserve System. Second, the Congress must issue $600 billion Treasury dollars for low-cost lending to states and cities, for public works, and for industry. Now, that's what Lyndon LaRouche and I stand for. Mr. LaRouche, who's a political prisoner of George Bush, is on the ballot for president in Pennsylvania, so you can vote for 6 million jobs with your vote for president and senator in this election. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Valenti. Up next is Mark Single.
I don't come from a wealthy family. As a matter of fact, my grandparents were coal miners. I'm the first of a generation to go to college. This is not a hobby for me. This is a commitment. I believe strongly that we've got to focus the domestic agenda of this nation to care for the people who made this nation great. My agenda is Pennsylvania's agenda. First, we need jobs and job training for Pennsylvania's workers. Secondly, we need a college education for every student that's qualified. Third, we need tax fairness, and we need a Buy American policy that's going to put our people back to work.
Thank you, Mr. Single. Freddie Mann Friedman is next.
I'm Freddie Mann Friedman. Cancer and AIDS are bankrupting our American health care system, and the greed-consuming Congress is bankrupting our economy, with CEOs pocketing million-dollar bonuses and firing American workers. As your senator, I will put Americans back to work. Good health care saves millions of taxpayer dollars, and good education keeps kids off of drugs and off the streets. Good senators take care of their people. I'm going to put the American dream back into the American family.
Thank you, Ms. Friedman. Our next candidate to give her closing statement is Lynn Yackel.
I am the candidate who can unseat Arlen Specter in November. I am in touch with the daily problems faced by Pennsylvanians: unemployment, lack of education, and lack of health care. While my opponents have been campaigning in political back rooms and at $1,000 a plate dinners, I have been visiting unemployment offices and struggling businesses. I offer change and a commitment to represent all the people of Pennsylvania. Help me get Pennsylvania to work again.
Thank you, Ms. Yackel. And finally, the closing statement of Robert Colville.
I began my career as a high school football coach and a teacher. From there, I became a patrol officer, working nights in order to go to law school. I spent some time as a homicide detective and then as police legal advisor of the city of Pittsburgh, and eventually the chief of police of the city. I've now been the district attorney for something like 16 years. I have been committed throughout that to know and understand the problems that people face in the day in and day out of their lives. I would like to be able to take those kinds of people-like skills and those kinds of problem-solving skills that I've learned to Washington to work for you and to fight for your rights.
Thank you, Mr. Colville. Well, this concludes our debate of Pennsylvania's Democratic candidates for the United States Senate. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters, I'd like to thank the candidates for appearing at this debate, and I'd like to thank our panelists. Remember, Pennsylvania's primary is April 28th. I'm Don Shriver. Good evening.
You have just seen the Pennsylvania Democratic senatorial debate. It was brought to you by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters, a group of 432 radio and 42 TV stations in the Keystone State. Good evening.
Tonight's Democratic senatorial debate has been brought to you by the Pennsylvania Association of Broadcasters.
This is Governor Bob Casey. Every time you buy recycled products, you leave the world cleaner for the next person. In Pennsylvania, recycled products and packaging are easy to find. Look for them. Buy them.
You got you and me, brother, in your hands. And thank you for recycling.
Hello, I'm Jerry Ruggles, coming to you live from Altoona, site of tonight's debate between Arlen Specter and Stephen Friend, the two men vying for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate. Specter, the two-term incumbent from Philadelphia, a former district attorney, chief counsel for the Warren Commission, studying the JFK assassination, and most recently the point man for the Republicans in the Anita Hill, Clarence Hill hearings. Now, Steve Friend also has been in the national limelight lately for his strong stand against abortion, Pennsylvania's new abortion law. Friend, a state representative, a former district attorney in Philadelphia himself. So tonight, the two will be here together to tell us how they feel differently from each other. Stand by. We'll be back in just a minute.
What is it, Maggie?
Remember when I told you Toyota's having their spring sales event?
Yes.
People better hurry. It's almost over.
Toyota's Spring Drive sales event is still going strong, but it ends soon. Time is running out on huge factory-to-dealer incentives. There's still big option package savings up to $1,500 on Celica. Your Toyota dealer has what it takes to help you buy or lease the Toyota that's right for you.
Listen to Maggie. Sales event ends April 2nd.
Stretch it out, caramello. Stretch it out.
I don't think it's so much that they should, like, pull money out of their pockets for us, you know, but at least show us a little bit of respect for what we've done.
My concerns with the closing of the surgical units at Lebanon and Altoona was because of our veterans having so far to travel to get